Hello, you're listening to episode 1 of Don't Get Mad, Get Busy, Be the Change. This is the beginning of a new podcast. This is Art of X Rob on artofxrob.tv, on YouTube as well. You can go find the podcast over there. If you want to join us, you come on over to Twitch, twitch.tv/artofxrob. Happy to entertain your chat there live. We will find an opportunity to put this on the calendar regularly because I do think it's something I want to do. I did start it last week, but I kind of got distracted by, how shall we say, a lightning storm. In fact, it was kind of funny. I was saying something negative about someone that I won't say because I don't want to risk it again. And it was a lightning strike. It was an actual lightning strike. It happened. It hit our apartment while I was talking, and it blew out a port in my OpenSense router, which is kind of interesting because it had to actually travel through the Ethernet cable, which I have, which runs right to my rig here, and did that. By the way, if you are not able to watch the video and you can't see the video feed, don't worry. We're going to be audio friendly for this forever. And I don't really have a lot of bullet points to talk about today. I do have a couple of things that have inspired me to start this podcast that I did want to talk about. One of them, it's actually been triggered by two documentaries. I tend to watch a lot of documentaries, and two of them recently that I've watched have really got me thinking about what to do about the state of humanity currently, and what can I contribute? How can I make a difference? How can any of us make a difference? And these are the kind of questions that I don't normally talk about on Twitch. Some of them I do, just a little plug for it. If you don't know, I do something, I've been mentoring since 2013. Because there's just nobody doing it. There was no one teaching coding. And frankly, I see coding and technology skills as a way to kind of, change your stars and add yourself to the, upper 9 or 10%. I'm using that term from a documentary I recently saw about the income inequality in America in particular. And, how to play the system. As Chris Nova says, actually, hacking capitalism, which many things in her book that I do agree with, some that I disagree with, that those would be things hopefully we'll be able to discuss here. I actually had Chris here as a guest once upon a time, and unfortunately that is now gone. That was just a VOD. So one of the reasons that I'm doing a podcast, I'm very, very happy to hear that YouTube is now enabling videos to be created as podcasts. So that, I've been saying that forever. That's a natural no-brainer thing for them to do, because you can just go ahead and take a video and take the audio track out of it and, publish that. So if you have a podcast app, you can go in and make that work. I have not made that work. I will do probably a technical video about how to get the podcast on your phone. If it's the kind of thing that you want to put on while you're stuck in traffic or you're out for a ride, and you just want to listen to something while you bike or you cycle. I'm actually sitting right next to my Wahoo Kicker bike. It's my new favorite toy. It's a toy I got, saved up my money for, and it's actually my favorite worldly possession currently. And it's just absolutely amazing. It's really fun to go outside as well, but it's a great way to pass the time and to get healthy. And that's actually one of the things that's triggered the conversations that I want to have here. So before we get too far along, I do want to say that if you are interested in a more in-depth, more obscene, more ranty take on what I might put in this podcast, I'm going to promise you this. I'm going to do my best to not use swear words. I'm going to make this podcast on the YouTube, suitable for work and suitable for pretty much everybody to think about, but I'm not going to pull punches. If I call it like I see it, and it's it's going to make people uncomfortable. And I just got to put that out there. But if you are truly okay with like random obscenity and ranting, then my Zettelkasten at artofxrob.github.io/zet, which I will eventually publish out to some other source. But for right now, that's the place you can go read about it. In fact, you can read about the review I made, the first impression I had of one of the documentaries that triggered this and reminded me that I needed to do this. And let's go ahead and talk about that. So the first, let me go ahead and make a Zettelkasten while we're doing this so I can make some notes for our show notes. So I'm typing on the screen Zet Create, which is using my Zettelkasten. We might do a podcast just about what a Zettelkasten is, why you might want to use one. But this one, I'm going to go ahead and just start. I'm going to just say, what should we call it? Don't get mad, get busy. Don't get mad. If I could spell, don't get mad, get busy, and be the change, which is kind of another take on it. That's the more Gandhi-esque idea of it as well. So, introduction is the first part. We'll just talk about this, about, what are we going to do? And then that documentaries that inspired this. So there are actually 3 specific documentaries that have really, really inspired this podcast. But beyond that, the first one in particular has really inspired me as a human being. And so I'm going to call that, hey, John, I'm going to call that The Internet's Own Boy. Okay. The Internet's Own Boy. This is the story of Aaron Schwartz, who I won't spoil it for you. He's done very many amazing things. In fact, the beginner boost that we do every year on May the 4th is dedicated to the memory of Aaron Schwartz. It's true. He did pass. It's a very depressing documentary, but it's a very essential documentary because it shows that as much as we would like to believe that the system can be reformed, which he does successfully do, it also means that the system is strong and that we need to back each other up and we need to support it because are those who resist, the status quo, because if you don't, you may end up dead. And I know that's a kind of a downer thought, but it's not the first, tragic story in history that has to do with, yes, I do code, that has to do with this kind of stuff, right? This has been a repeating story throughout history. It just so happens that Aaron Schwartz is, the one that I tend to respond to the most. In fact, if you go to YouTube, you can watch the documentary for free. I will put a link in the show notes. It's called The Internet's Own Boy. Own Boy. And I'm going to tell you about these documentaries because as many people as we can get to watch it for the podcast, the more opportunity we'll have for you to participate and to comment on it. And maybe we will actually take each one of these, people, we can do book club readings. We can do anything we want in this podcast. But this is going to be the place for that. It's going to be the place for discussions about, hopefully that lead to action. And that's kind of the point of the title. Don't get mad or don't get sad, get busy. Let's actually set forth actions for ourselves, and not for others. It's a really common thing to point the finger at somebody else and tell them what they need to do. And I've just ranted about that very thing, about what other people need to do. But it starts at home, right? We've got to be able to make those changes in ourselves. And so starting with the story of Aaron Schwartz, who was an autodidact from the very first day of his birth, he has constantly been learning and teaching others from the time he was a toddler. He was teaching his friends and family and enjoying it and just studying things for the love of the fascination of the learning, and doing so much more than that, taking it all the way through his life. And I will let you talk about that and read about that. So that's the first thing. And by the way, these episodes are probably going to be about 40 minutes. I mean, we are going to have long form podcasts here. So 40 minutes to an hour tops. I mean, that's about the time, most people going to and from work. I want to be able to have people finish it up in a day or two, so they can kind of keep up with the podcast for the week. And it will vary over time. Okay, so this is the first one. The second one that I really want to talk about is something called Saving Capitalism. There is a VOD if you are fast. I did not publish it to YouTube, but if you want to watch the VOD where I started right after I watched Saving Capitalism for the second time, I started, what was going to be the first version of this podcast, and was rudely interrupted by God sending lightning to my house. There's going to be some religious fanatic out there who's going to think that that's a sign that they shouldn't listen to what I have to say. And they're probably right. Probably right. There's probably something, that God or Mother Earth or the universe wanted me to learn from that. I imagine the takeaway from that is, don't be so damn negative and personal and use so many swear words. And that's only going to be around for another 40 days. So if you're one of the, few listening to this now, just know that you can go back to the Twitch VOD for another 40 days or so, and you can actually watch that one happen if you want to. But it was quite a different take on it. So Saving Capitalism. It's actually a book. It's also I believe it's on Netflix only. Let's go look that up for a second. Maybe it's on YouTube. We'll see. I doubt it. Saving Capitalism. And it's already got kind of an inflammatory title. I think the title is relevant. And here we go. So Saving Capitalism with 7 years ago. It looks like you can watch the entire thing online. What do you know? I think you can. UC Public Policy Channel. Wait, yeah, no, you can watch the whole thing online for free, it looks like. So this is not about capitalism, believe it or not. I'm going to spoil it a little bit for you. This is about activism. It's about finding a way to dig deep and become engaged politically and civically, as an American, or in that specific case. And it's like, what does it take? It's funny because you have people that find ways to be activated, and when it comes to violence and stuff. But if you ask those same people to remain regularly engaged in the political process through other forms of activism, I mean, I'm just going to pick on them, but let's take the rioters, for example, right? You stick them, you get them all ramped up and freeze them to death and get Trump in front of them, and they will be happy to storm the Capitol because it feels like they're doing something, right? But if you ask those same people to do anything else in terms of activism or contribution to their local community, to lift where they stand, to reach out to the less fortunate in their communities, to help somebody fucking move. Okay, my one swear word. Can I have one swear word per thing? How's that? Is that okay? So, if you ask them to do that, oh no, they'll storm the Capitol and load up all their guns and go into debt for ammo and mags and stuff. But when it comes to actually doing something in their local community, and I'm judging them, I am judging them. It's a different story. So don't get mad, get busy, but maybe not storm the Capitol. Maybe take other steps, maybe do other things, maybe educate yourself. Maybe, I actually once saw an interview with a guy. I wish I had it. The guy was being interviewed by a journalist who was kind of leading his questions. I don't remember the news channel. And he was kind of leading his questions. And one of the questions he asked the guy, and, I believe this was in a coal town, if I remember correctly. Correct me. I'm not claiming complete accuracy here. This is just for, rhetorical purposes. But I remember the interview went something like, So, what do you think about, the coal mine not being around anymore or something like that? And it's almost like the journalist wanted the answer. Oh yeah, it's, I don't even remember who the president was at the time or what the purpose was, but it was like, oh yeah, as long as we don't have coal mines, yeah, we it's all about, America, go coal, blah blah blah. You know what he said? I mean, we're talking about a guy who looked like that now canceled comedian with the chopped off, shirt sleeves, and then the cap that was kind of tattered and everything. What was his name? I don't remember his name. Anyway, he looked like him, right? He's this down home guy, and he goes, "I don't care. I just want a job. I don't care if it's coal or whatever. I don't care as long as it's a job." And you know what? He was just a little bit older than a Zoomer. He was from that generation, and I remember watching the guy interviewing him, was kind of surprised. He was like, he wasn't expecting that answer. He was like, I don't care. He was like, I don't care. I don't care. I just want a job. Right. And actually, that kind of brings me to the last documentary. I am going to read your comments here in a bit. The last documentary, which I just watched all of it, is Working, which was produced by the Obamas, Michelle and Barack. You can hate the Obamas all you want. And that's fine. There's certain things about the Obamas that I definitely don't agree with, particularly the Flint, Michigan thing. But I tell you what, when it comes to, for example, the Obamas were anti-gay marriage for a long time. People don't know this, but they and the Clintons too. They all changed. All these liberals. They went and they changed. This, by the way, is going to be, to some degree, a little bit political. There's just no escaping. Talking about these topics is going to become political a little bit. So it's probably important that you know that. But in watching this thing, I absolutely think the premise of the Working docuseries, or whatever you want to call it, I think it's amazing. I think it's super important. If you have Netflix, I think you should watch it, so that we can talk about the good and the bad of it. I actually recently wrote a Zuddlecast, an entry. It looks like you have to actually pay for it. So now you can see my YouTube. You can see what I search for a lot. I've been searching a lot about health related items because recently, and I'm going to go there, recently I have been overcoming my own health issues, particularly my own obesity, which I'm now happy to say I'm no longer obese. I'm just overweight according to my BMI standing, which will be a topic. Health is definitely going to be a topic. In fact, the most recent Zuddlecast entry that I made, blog entry, whatever you want to call it, was about health, and it was about what I believe. And I might just jump right into this as a topic for tonight before we leave. I'm going to pause there before I get into it. So let's read some comments before I move on. Whether or not you like the Obamas, I strongly suggest you watch Working, because it goes through and it documents the working class. It documents what does it mean to work, and it's actually based on some really good work from much earlier, about what does it mean to work in America. And I mean, they talk about it from every level. They talk about it from people making $9 an hour all the way up to CEOs of companies and organizations. And I do like that they were somewhat selective in their examples, by focusing on people that seem to be making real decisions. They do seem to be real people, and they could be totally fooling me. Look, one thing I learned from studying Russian and living in Russia for all those years is that propaganda is definitely a thing, and that my podcast could easily be categorized as propaganda for what I believe, for what I have been convinced is true. And before we get into these comments, there is one primary requirement that I am going to put forth for my audience from the very beginning. And the reason that The Internet's Own Boy is the first documentary that I want everybody to see is because Neil deGrasse Tyson, like him or hate him, there's things about him I really don't like and things about him I love, uses the term personal truth and scientific truth, right? And he distinguishes the two. And I think it's super important that we use what has been demonized, the scientific method, as a way to arrive at both scientific truth and personal truth. And maybe it's the Mormonism in me from all those years before, but there's a scripture, and Mormonism is going to come up a lot on this podcast because I was a Mormon for 42 years. But there is a scripture in the Book of Mormon. Actually, it's Moroni 10:4. It's either Moroni 10:4 or I can't remember. It might be the Isaiah one, but it basically says, actually, no, it's in the Bible. Now my scriptures are. I'm such a bad Mormon. Bad Christian for that matter. I believe in Jesus, by the way, but not the divinity of Jesus. If you want to put me into a nice, happy little box, there you go. There's all the stuff you need on the first podcast for you to make, upfront judgments about me, and you can decide whether to listen to me or not. But I believe in I believe in Christ the same way that Thomas Jefferson believed in Christ. Now, go figure it out, and that's the main point I'm trying to make here. Truth, personal truth, is arrived at through one's own study of their existing environment, the reason that we're here, why are we here, how do we get here, where are we going, those kind of questions, my relationship with one another, our relationship with the universe, all of that stuff. There's scientific truth in there that we can observe, and then there's also personal truth that we can personally observe, where we're given our own insights into that. And you could call that metaphysical if you want, whatever. I do believe in that. I do believe that there is a higher power, and that whether or not the higher power is directly involved with your discovery about what goes on in our world, is something I'm not sure of, but I do believe there's something going on there. But more importantly for you, I truly wholeheartedly believe that there is enough objective scientific evidence to suggest that the best thing you can do for yourself is learn to think for yourself, learn to ask questions and answer those questions and not be afraid of the answers. Learn to be an autodidact, to set forth on a journey of personal discovery and scientific discovery, and to document it, and to share it, and to not be afraid of being wrong. One of the greatest things about science is that when science is wrong, nobody cares, right? There is no such thing as like an absolute truth in science. The best thing you can get is gravity or something like that, and then it becomes a law, right? Well, everything in science is up for grabs, and that makes people very uncomfortable. But I think that we need to become comfortable with the idea that what we think right now about a thing could be dead wrong, and be okay with that. We get so dogmatic. Dogma is really the devil. Dogma is the devil. There, I'm going to put it down here. Dogma is the devil. Dogma is this idea, whether it occurs in science. And by the way, the people that love to demonize science, what they're actually demonizing is dogmatic science. Science that violates its own ethical standards to falsify stuff to make a certain result seem more true than another. Nobody thinks that that's ethical. There's been a lot of that. I have two autistic sons, and believe me, if you get me talking about autism, which we will definitely talk about, it's so unfortunate that, one bad scientist in the bunch has destroyed a lot of the scientific discovery related to autism based on their fraud, right? So, and when it's religion, I don't have to say anything more about that, right? Dogma is the devil, and religion too. So religions that say, there's a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and they should never be married, and no man is ever sent here with any desires or attractions for another man. God would never do that. They're fucking wrong. They're totally wrong. I can show you millions of examples where that's objectively wrong. And then when they change their mind about it, and they say, oh, guess what? We were wrong. But they don't say it like that. And I'm going to give you one specific example of how dogma, whether it's in science or it's in religion, it's the devil. It's literally the devil. And this is a personal example from my family. Another thing you need to know about me, I'm 100% estranged from my family, the family that I belong to. I'm in contact with my own sons. I was divorced after, bunch of bad stuff that went down in my marriage, which I will get into eventually. I'm not ashamed of telling you what happened. I'm not trying to hide anything there, but I do think it's important that you know that I personally have chosen to cut ties with my family, mostly for this sheer simple reason that it just reminds me of a lot of traumatic things that have happened in my past. It's more about me, not so much about them. Uh, I just can't. I just can't. Let's just put it that way. And so it's nothing about them. And I believe that that they still love me and all that jazz. And at some level, I still love them. But for my own self preservation, I just can't. I can't. I am the oldest of 8 siblings who were born in the Mormon Church, and this is why I'm telling you this story. And I'm going to quote my mother on this. My mother once told me, and I quote, "If I had known that birth control, that authorized use in the Mormon Church of birth control, was for the quote health of the mother, that was okay, that the health of the mother included the mental health of the mother, I would have taken it." All right, now I have nothing. I don't want to. It's not saying anything about whether my siblings should have existed or not. They're wonderful people in their own regard, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is the fact that because of the dogmatic position of the Mormon Church with regard to birth control, my mother nearly died on the last child when a spinal went up and it stopped her breathing, blacked her out, and they still have no record. They still don't know what happened. They rushed my dad out of the room, and my mother nearly died in the hospital doing the Lord's will because she had been taught she could not use birth control. All right. Now, that is dogma. That's dogma. That's dogma at work, right? And then what? And now the Mormon Church's official position on this is, oh, yeah, birth control, yeah, that's a normal part of married life. And their new take on it in their handbook of instructions. Believe me, I'm demonizing the Mormon Church right now. I'm going to demonize scientific dogma as well. This is an open forum. It's trying to keep it interesting. I'm not trying to be inflammatory. I'm just trying to get it out. Don't get mad, get busy. What can we do about it? Well, in this particular case, when the Mormon Church changes their opinion and in their handbook of instructions, they officially say that birth control is now a decision that should be made between the husband and the wife and God. That's their new dogma. That's their new instruction. So they quietly change the rules of the game, which have dramatically impacted the lives of all Mormons in the dark. Just like so many other religions have done, just like political, places have done. When people change their mind on something and they can't say they were wrong, people suffer for that. And so the goal that and the thing that I'm going to put out there and the challenge I'm going to put to those of you listening is be okay with being wrong. Be okay with being wrong. Allow others to be wrong. Allow them to be wrong. Don't assume they're wrong. Don't wag your finger at them. I'm going to wag fingers. Believe me, I'm going to wag fingers, but it's usually not going to be individuals, right? It's going to be something that those individuals have started to believe that's wrong. I'm going to try really hard to not do ad hominem attacks, which is what they call it, right? When you attack an individual. But I tell you what definitely deserves to be attacked. Dogmatic thinking, the hiding of guilt. This whole litigious society has created an environment where organizations, huge businesses, they'll have, behind the scenes, I'm thinking of the NFL and all the thing that they did where they didn't have to come out and say that people were actually having massive brain trauma from football, which is going to be another topic. And they were able to get away from saying that to the tune of $768 million in order to not admit they were wrong. Because it's more important that they save face than that they have plausible deniability and all of this shit. And that is evil. The idea that our society cannot say when it was wrong, that we cannot say when we were wrong. In fact, if you want to identify a toxic person almost immediately, right? If you want to identify a toxic individual and remove yourself from an engagement with a toxic individual because you just know it's not going to go anywhere positive, right? There's not going to be any productive dialogue out of it. As soon as you know that that person is never wrong, and by the way, there's lots of examples of this in popular media right now, right? When that person refuses to admit that they were wrong ever. I'm going to give you an example of somebody who positively admitted that they were wrong. All right. There's actually a scene of this, and I'm going to play it if I can find it. Hillary Clinton, and you know what? You can hate her all you want. There's so many things about Hillary Clinton that I do not like. And I don't want to get into it, but I want to share one example about the Hillary. There's a Hillary SNL skit where, and this goes back a ways, when the absolutely brilliant Kate McKinnon is portraying her, and I'm just gonna have to paraphrase it because I don't think I can find it here. If I could, it would probably get me, unmonetized or whatever. So there's a scene where they're at the bar, and Hillary Clinton actually appears, and they're talking, right? And Kate McKinnon ad-libs a line. They're like talking about things that could have changed differently. I'm sorry if I'm horribly butchering this because it's coming from memory, but Kate McKinnon and she goes, yeah, she was like, yeah. And then there's that whole thing about gay marriage, it's like, yeah, she's like, yeah. And she admits that she did it wrong. She goes, yeah, but you could have changed a little bit quicker there. And Kate McKinnon gives a wink to Hillary, and she totally ad-libbed that line, you can tell. And Hillary's like, yeah, and she just admits it on SNL. So, you can say what you want about Hillary, and Hillary's got lots of, ghosts in her closet and everything else. But she went on SNL and admitted she was wrong about something in a comical way where, Kate McKinnon even made fun of her, poked fun of her. He goes, you could have been a little faster on that. And she's like, yeah, I know. Say what you want. I mean, there's plenty of other things where she's probably covered up, opportunities where she was wrong and she was maybe doing it to manipulate public opinion. I don't care. The fact that somebody of that level was able to admit they were wrong about something says so much. And if you look around in the political arena and you look at other people right now, generally speaking, the people that you want to trust are the people that will tell you when they were wrong, when they screwed up, when they made a mistake, not too much, right? The thing that's bad is you got people who screw up and are imperfect and who continue to tell you that they proceed as if nothing's wrong. And then you have other people who are legitimately regret what they did and they own it and they move forward. Right. And there's some people who get caught and are forced to be apologetic. There's a whole gamut of people. But when I'm coming back to the main point here. Dogma is the devil. It's like, I'm going to say this. I'm going to give yourself permission to yourself and others permission to be wrong. Okay. To be wrong. You know why? Because if you don't do that, somebody's not going to do that for you. It's a basic courtesy that we have forgotten how to do in modern society. We do not allow other people to be wrong and to make changes. We crucify them, and I know that's a bad word, but we do. We crucify them when they're wrong, and we say, see, and we don't allow progress that way. We're never going to create a dialogue if we can't get over that and can't get to the point where we can actually start having a conversation. And that another thing about this is this is for me. I need this so bad. You need to assume, let's see, what is it? Give other people the benefit of the doubt. Okay. And I am the first person who needs to hear this. Okay. I do not do this, right? I hold myself to a high standard, and then I hold other people to the same standard. And I project, maybe because I'm the oldest child, who knows what, but I tell people how they should be based on what I think I should be, right? And I mean, I think a part of that is actually just being human, but we do need to allow people to grow and, accept them for who they are right now and then help them move to that place. It doesn't mean we have to accept their behaviors or their ideologies. That's not what I'm saying, right? I'm saying that we need to allow people to grow and make choices and stuff like that. All right, time for me to take a few questions here. I think we are into this quite a bit. How long have we been doing? We've been recording for 35 minutes. Okay, so there's been quite a few comments come in. I'm just going to go kind of, this is in general, this is what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to take a moment to read from the comments so you guys can go get a drink or take a break. Good morning. Good morning. People asking me if I code. Yes, I do. I code all the time. If you want to code, join us on Saturday mornings for the Beginner Boost, where we will write some code and learn Linux and all those great skills to get you wonderful tech knowledge worker jobs so that you can be, you can have some social mobility if that's interesting to you. That's the reason I started it, by the way. I truly believe if you want to help people conquer poverty, you need to teach them tech skills. And not everybody can do tech skills. It's sad, but those who can, that's, $40 an hour is much more than $13 an hour, right? And that's like entry level tech skills. So if you want to join us for that, I do have my entire channel is dedicated to helping people learn specifically Linux and applying that to tech jobs. Linux is a fundamental skill that will set you apart from all other technologists out there. So yes, the answer is yes, I do code, and you can join us for that. John Pendon says, great idea. We should do a book club. I agree. We got to put a book there, but I don't want it to just be a book club. I think it will be a book club and, hey, go watch this documentary. Let's talk about it. Or, hey, what do you think of this YouTube channel, this thing that just happened? That kind of thing, right? So we will talk about current events. And some of those events are going to be very, volatile. I changed my category to podcasts because I want people to know what they're getting into. I didn't put it into politics. We are going to talk about politics, though, so don't feel ashamed of that. The cybernetics question about cybernetics. Question here: could you imagine including cybernetic thinking? Damn, that would be cool. Very well said, Chris. Thank you for saying so. I don't know what it was, but John Pantone, I was at the Roger Waters concert this weekend. He showed me again what you can do with art. Art makes a difference. Art has the power to show you something. I completely agree. For those of you who don't know, this being the first podcast, my wife is at the McCall Center. She has a studio there in downtown Charlotte. She's actually there right now. It is strangely, it's 1:00 in the morning, my time. This is something else that probably we'll talk about at some point. I use a bimodal sleep schedule these days. It helps me recover better between cycling sessions or working out and work and all that stuff. So we will talk about sleep and rest and quality of life and all that. But art is a big part of my life. In fact, tomorrow's Friday. So Friday I'll be doing Critical Mass. Charlotte will be live streaming from the bike ride downtown. We will also be going to see the art at the McCall Center and visit my wife Doris. So, can capitalism be really saved? Chris asks. In America, we are taught to destroy your competitors as sort of crush them. That's not good capitalism. Yeah. Hold on. You lived in Russia? Welcome, comrades. Well, today sounds like a reveal. Everything is coming out. I have a ton of questions. Well, I'm Chris. I'm glad you have questions, and this is going to be the place to have those questions, is to air them. With regard to my reveal, I made a choice some years back to pretty much personally choose to let the details of my life be known by pretty much everybody. And that includes very intimate details, such as the nature of my divorce, the doubts and problems I had growing up as a Mormon. Um, and I am 55. I don't mind telling everyone. And so at this age and having gone through what I've gone through, um, I truly believe one of the best things that I can do with the rest of my life is to be open about the absolute mistakes I made and the good things that I did while I was growing up. So you can call it a social contract between the elderly and the young, whatever the hell you want to put a label on it. I I actually, to be fair, full disclosure, when I was going through a troubling time after the divorce, I actually videoed several people in the retirement centers. I would go to, assisted living centers, and I would just to find meaning again in life because I no longer had my belief in anything. I was trying to rebuild a foundation of belief in anything. And I felt like one of the best ways to do that was to talk to those who had lived long lives. And so I did. I went to these places and I sat there at the bedside of these random strangers and just listened to them. And at one point, I was actively seeking to make a collection of interviews, audio interviews with these people. And I was shut down by it because of the families. Man, I wish I could tell you this. There was one guy who was a hobo on a train for several years, almost a decade. And the stories, whether they're true or not, I can't even tell you. Whether they're lucid dreaming in reality, I don't know. But I got to tell you, the quality of those stories was so amazing. I am not ruling out the possibility that I might someday take my, my audio recorder and find it. But the people at the organization said you can't record them without their family's permission. Which, if you think about that, you could do a whole thing just about that, right? You can't allow some of these generations to actually to speak freely because their families don't want them to. Just unpack that for a second. Why on earth would you not want those that you've been given care of to say things, right? What kind of secrets do you have that they're going to reveal? What are you afraid that they're going to say? What are you going to be? Are you going to feel shame because they're going to make something up that doesn't actually exist? These families, some of these families who are paying for their assisted living of their elderly, they don't want them to speak. And actually, if you think back, if there's another great movie you could go watch, it's called Fried Green Tomatoes. Fried Green Tomatoes has got to be one of my all-time favorite movies. And I'm not going to give it up. You have to watch it. But it's the entire, and of course, it was a book before it was a movie, but the movie's great. You'll love it. But the big premise of the movie is that this woman who's going through kind of a midlife thing is speaking. She's listening to the stories. She gets sucked into this story that, of course, they recreate in flashbacks from this elderly, amazing woman that she's run into, and it's absolutely brilliantly written. It's just brilliantly acted, and it's kind of the kind of thing that I wanted to do, and it's also the reason that I don't have a problem sharing my stories as much as I can. Some of the stories I have, I can only allude to them for, I suppose, legal reasons. Some of my career in the past is not something I can talk about openly. Which is too bad. I mean, those are some of the things that maybe like when I'm on my deathbed, I'll actually give you all that stuff. But I'll be certainly happy to tell you some of those stories. And one of the reasons I wanted to do a podcast is I wanted to start recounting some of these stories from beginning to end. I've done many things. I changed my major from French to Russian and I was computer science too. And I lived and worked in Russia for several years. I had lots of contacts with American spies and with Russian arms dealers and with the mafia. And and tourists. And I have a lot of stories from that. I also was uh, nearly chopped to bits by a drug dealer in Martinique on my mission. I mean, I have a lot of amazing life experiences that I would really like to share and talk about. Um, Not so much to flex, but so much to give people an opportunity to put some context around where they are and how they might want to derive meaning from that. So that big long spiel came because of this one comment. Sounds like a reveal. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of personal reveals going on here, and that's all I have to say. I'll try not to call out people who are alive, but so I'm not promising anything. Um, I think John Lennon already said it. John says, yes, it takes courage and strength. I always say I can't guarantee you whether what I think today will stay be valid tomorrow. I like that. If I had an experience, I have to discard my thoughts and stand by it. It's so hard, isn't it? I think saying you were wrong, you know what I think helped me say I was wrong? Having to say that I raised my children in the wrong church, the wrong way, the best way that I knew, but the wrong way for years. It's not an exaggeration to say that I secretly went to see a psychologist to establish how much damage I could be doing to my children while I was still married, before I had decided to leave. And there was a lot of drama that ensued from that. And I don't want to get into the drama right now, but so that is something we will talk about. But it's so hard for me to say, I am so sorry I taught you wrong. I taught you the best that I knew, but it was dead wrong. I was dead wrong. It was dangerously wrong. One of my sons turns out to be gay. He's married. He's in Canada. He's happy now. And thank God I was able to make the steps that I did when I did, even though they were horribly made, so that he could find the happy. He's so happy now. And I'm not going to tell you where he is or anything. I'm not going to talk to him specifically. But I do want to say that sometimes being wrong, admitting you're wrong, opens the doors for other positive things to happen that you may not even be aware of, right? So that all came about because Dogma is the devil. And I want that to be the basis of this podcast, is that, don't get mad, get busy. But sometimes that means get busy making change. Be the change. If you find something wrong, fix it. Is this similar to the concept of a blameless culture in SRE? I don't know what that is. I haven't heard of that. Fantastic. That's super cool though. What is that? You'll have to come back to that again. I want to hear about what that is. Blameless culture. John says it's more in keeping with a culture that doesn't understand the potential for error, misbelief. The perfection that society has invented destroys people. Yeah. This idea of pursuing perfection, actually another really amazing work of art film, hands down, one of my favorite all-time films, probably my top 10, is Black Swan. And obviously I'm a Natalie Portman fan. By the way, fun fact, did you know that in Black Swan that Natalie Portman actually married the guy that she was dancing with? That was her husband. She had children with him. They eventually split, but it's a fun fact. But you talk about the weight of perfection and how perfection can make you crazy, and how not being able to change and not being able to let go, and those are the fundamental themes in Black Swan, actually. Pretty creepy movie though. Chris says, I have a question about Mormons and racism. Apparently it is even written in Mormon books. What's your take on that? Oh man, we need an entire podcast just about Mormon racism. Okay, so suffice it to say, let me just wet your palate here. So I served a mission in the West Indies, specifically the French West Indies. And oui, je parle français. Si vous voulez écrire en français, je peux l'écouter, je peux l'écrire, je peux le lire. Я говорю по-русски тоже. Если вам нравится говорить по-русски и пишет на русском, можно писать. Я постараюсь читать то, что вы говорите, то, что вы читаете, то, что вы пишете на русском. Ладно? Okay. So I just wanted to tell our French speakers and our Russian speakers that if you prefer to write, if you feel more comfortable writing in French, please do. I'm going to put a note here. Please feel free to write in French or Russian if you prefer. So I am a little bit of a polyglot, and I really love the opportunity to do that. I can't always read everything you have to say, but if it's easier for you to write your comments in French or Russian, I'm super happy to do that. I consider the internet in general to be just an absolute godsend with regard to language instruction. And I would really like to do a whole podcast just about how to immerse yourself in languages and learn language and all of that. I started a language company while I was in college, a small one. I made Russian root flashcards. I worked for Taurus Linguistic Systems doing, coloring, animations of different language things. I helped work on Montevideo, which was like I was actually at Brigham University, which is also a top CIA recruiting center, because of the language fluency and the Mormonism and the Mormon commitment to understanding not just language but culture. And you can say a lot of negative things about the Mormons, but the one thing that's very positive is that, believe it or not, Mormons have a sincere desire to understand the language and culture of everyone in the world, and it's driven by their belief in God and their calling from God that they need to do that. So whether or not you believe anything else that they have to say, or that it's just a big ploy to manipulate the whole world into believing what they believe, which it is, it doesn't matter, because they're still extremely effective at doing it. Brigham Young University has the premier linguistics program on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. And I could back that up all day. When I was there, it continues to be. So languages are a big part of my life. They always have been, and the internet has, particularly Twitch, believe it or not, I can actually follow and listen to colloquial, language expression, and hear people speaking their native tongue, listen to their swear words, their colloquialisms, and even, learn how to type in Russian again and do all the things that I've forgotten to do. So if you are, specifically, if you are a French speaker or a Russian speaker, and that includes people who aren't Russian, right? I don't want this to be pro-Russia Ukraine, right? The only time I've really had to ban people from my Twitch is, we have both Russians and Ukrainians coming in under obvious circumstances, just talking absolute shit about each other. And I understand where that's coming from, but it's not okay to do that. Okay. It's not okay either way to do it, right? The Russians didn't start the war. Putin started the war. Okay. And there are Russians who agree with him, and there are a lot more Russians who disagree with him. So demonizing Russians because of the war is a mistake. When Ukrainians come in guns blazing against all the Russians about all Russians are this and that, I understand where that emotion is coming. I mean, I don't empathize with it because I can't possibly imagine what it must have been like to live through it. But it's wrong, right? It's wrong. You can't. It's like saying that because Trump was our president, that I believe everything that Trump said. Obviously I don't. Stuff like that. So anyway, I want everybody to feel welcome here, more or less. We are going to have heated debates, and that's just going to happen. But I want to try to keep it as civil as we possibly can be, but I do not want to avoid the tough topics. One of the biggest problems in society today is that we continue to avoid having dialogue about the tough topics. Jon Stewart frequently says this, and I'm a huge Jon Stewart fan. Jon Stewart will frequently say, he was actually with his buddy. Jon Stewart was actually on the Stephen Colbert show with their long-term buddies. And Colbert was trying to get Jon Stewart, in my opinion, to call out, about Kanye West about his anti-Semitic comments because Jon Stewart is gay. I mean, did I say gay? Jewish. He's not Sarah John. And it might be, I don't know. And Jon Stewart didn't call him out on it. And it was really interesting. He obviously doesn't agree with what he said, but he took that opportunity to say it's more important that we take a moment to have a dialogue than it is for me to call out the obvious, offensive things that this guy said. And I cannot overstate my agreement with that. We've got to start de-escalate. And I'm speaking to myself here. Okay. I mean, I have plenty of documented video evidence of me not doing what I'm saying right now. Okay. So you can hold me to it. You can say, Rob, you're not really doing what you talked about on that first day there. You're getting kind of mean. And I can try to excuse it and say, well, I'm just so frustrated. Now, you know what? There's no fucking excuse, okay? There's no excuse. And I need to own myself and be responsible. And I need to take responsibility for my own words and actions. And that sometimes might mean apologizing. God, when's the last time we heard people do that? Nobody apologizes anymore. By the way, sure sign of somebody you should never become involved with in a long-term relationship. They never say they're sorry. Never say they're sorry. Never say they're sorry. I'm just putting it out there. If there was like a list of things to like watch out for is like, check boxes to like warning signs. I mean, you can add a bunch of them, but one of it be like, treats the waiter harshly when they leave the table. Says bad stuff about the waiter when they leave the table. There's a blacklist. Here's another one. It talks crap about all their friends all the time. Oh, check that one off. Behind their back, like when they're not talking about them, right? But yeah, that's another one, right? Or is undercharged for their meal and would rather drive away and say that they got a free, oh, wow, look at that, we got a free meal, rather than going back and paying. Okay, a danger sign right there. Never, ever says they're sorry to anyone. And this one is harder to track, right? Because you have to be around a person for quite a long time before you find out that they never. There's the opposite problem, too. People say, oh, I'm so sorry. They say they're sorry every 10 seconds, and they don't really mean it, right? It's almost as bad because you're saying you're sorry all the time. Anyway, so basically, three-letter agency or no such agency. I look, I will say this. I'm going to say, Chris, I'm going to just put it straight out there. Okay. I have had no direct employment by the CIA or the NSA or any other three-letter agency. Okay. And I probably just put myself on a watch list. Oh, well, maybe they'll give me a job. I have mixed feelings about those agencies, by the way. There are other Twitch streamers who are very anti, three-letter agency. KGB, all of them. FSB, it's actually FSB now. John Pantone, Rob, I think we have similar story also in terms of divorcing kids. Oh, we have to compare. Yes, post links, fantastic. Thank you for the post the links. What's this? Okay, I'm reading a quote from the SRE book about postmortem culture. I have no idea what this is. Hopefully this is relevant to read. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Blameless culture originated in the healthcare and avionics industries where mistakes can be fatal. These industries nurture an environment where every mistake is seen as an opportunity to strengthen the system. What postmortem shift from allocating blame to investigating the systematic reasons why an individual or team had incomplete or incorrect information, effective prevention plans can be put in place. Oh my God, that is perfect. Fantastic. This is why I want you to know. Thank you so much for your contribution. This is why I'm making this podcast live. The people that are in my community, I'm going to brag, that have literally given me my current job, are some of the most amazing people on the planet. We have people in the Art of X Rob community who advise the president on security measures. We have people who have run corporations. We have people who have hired thousands of people. We have people who are students who are struggling, who have imposter syndrome, even though they're going to be fine. We have everyone, people, in the art community, some people who just like cycling and fitness. I am very happy to say that the streaming that I have done, we have people who gave up great jobs to go back to teaching because they believe so much in being the change out there. And I just cannot overly say, how wonderful you are, how wonderful these people. I'm not saying that to pander. I honestly believe it. In fact, I talked to my wife about this recently. You can even ask her. I don't have a lot of friends in real life here. I mean, I consider you real life. I really don't. I don't have a lot of opportunity. I have more now recently with my wife, and her art community has kind of become something of my community. And it's really exciting. And it's no fault of anyone else's that I have lost contact with friends from the past. That's all been me. But I really consider the people in my community, many of them personal friends, some of whom I haven't met. I had a friend once tell me that you can't call somebody a friend unless you can call them up and have them come help change your spare tire. And I'm like, I don't think that really works. It was actually somebody said that to me while I actually made friends with people in a virtual world. And our families actually got together and went to Disney World in Florida back when you could do that. And these are people that I met entirely online, So I actually, another story, my wife and I at the time, we actually met a Broadway starlet and her husband, and they took us through New York. And these are people that I met online. So I met my wife online. And that will be a story as well. My father was excommunicated from the Mormons for marrying my mother because she is Puerto Rican. At the time, it was illegal in some states. Oh my God, you got to tell me about that. It was illegal for them to be married because that is the strangest story ever. I don't know if I actually agree that that's ever officially been the Mormon position. I don't want to misrepresent the Mormon church but sharing your personal experience is certainly fine. So Tankenheimer, I definitely want to hear about that. That's super interesting. Chris says, donc je suis pas surpris. Tu es vraiment intelligent. What about Dutch? No, I do not speak German. No, je parle pas le Dutch. Allemagne. No, I don't. My wife is German. She's a second generation immigrant, and we are probably going to go back. She's actually showing art in Austria right now, and she keeps promising me she's going to take me to Austria soon, like this year or next year or something. So we will be over there in Germany. Christmas is always really fun, or any time I go over there to eat. My in-laws are very, very strongly accented German speakers. And it's just absolutely wonderful. I really love them. They're fantastic. They have their own quirks, as any human does. Justin says, hello, please give me advice on how to find a soulmate that suits you and how to find out that you are not suitable for each other. Wow, that's a great question. You know what, Justin, we will make that a topic. So I'm glad that you guys are suggesting topics here. We're coming up to an hour, so we need to go ahead and stop the podcast for today, but I think we have a lot to talk about. It seems like it from reading the chat here. I read a few more chat messages here before we close off for the day. And I have to promise myself I'm not going to do more than one of these a week. Because as people know, I tend to get obsessed about something and then realize that it's dominated everything about my life and then throw it all out. And then I regroup and I do it again. So it's something I've struggled. It's the reason that I'm, try to practice yoga so much is I have a very hard time with balance. And I think if there's one thing that our world needs and that most individuals need to figure out, it's being in the moment and balance. And I don't have it figured out. I really don't. So I will tell you this. I will keep it to an hour a week, all right? And we'll figure out how to find balance as well as a soulmate. And maybe for that one, I'll bring my soulmate in. I used to hate that word soulmate. It's almost like the universe said, "Oh yeah, watch this," and I will tell you the story of how we met. If you would like to hear that, and I'll bring her here to keep me honest. Maybe she'll agree to that, maybe not. Cool Pill says very versatile. Thank you for that. Wolfulness, one of my favorite Russian speakers. Он я опоздал, а тут привет, Роб, привет всем. So he says, "Oh no, I was too late." Okay, so to be fair, Willfulness, I hit everybody with this by surprise. I just got done watching, as I said, the Working docuseries with the mama in it, and that inspired me to do this, even though I'm finishing up here at 2:00 in the morning. I will put this on the calendar, so if you want to participate, you can do that. I don't know what time that will be. It will probably be in my evening time or late evening. One of the reasons that I like to do things in the late evening is that I have a lot of participation from people in different regions of the world, particularly Australia, Russia, and places like that. So if we go too late, though, it becomes like really really late for them. So not everyone's going to be able to participate. I see somebody discovered some of my commands in Twitch, particularly what I believe about Rust. That comment that you saw about Rust is no longer relevant. Some of it is, but for the most part, I am pro Rust for the right things. Specifically, Rust is a programming language and a computer game, but I am a particular fan of Firecracker, which is a micro virtual machine engine that works with Rust. People love it and hate it, so we'll talk about that. Fantastic says, "I really enjoy your content. It's very honest and insightful." Thank you. John Pantone says, "Yes, you're welcome. We have a small house available for you." Nice. Dankenheimer says, "We were only allowed at his mother's last family reunion and were put up in the upper right of our family photo so they could easily cut you out." Oh, Tankenheimer, oh, that's such a story. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at how crazy that is that human beings act that way, is it not? But sometimes we have to do things to survive. So to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe you make them question their own, beliefs about the world too much, and therefore they can't deal. You ever think about that? So they're doing it for self-preservation. Anyways, an American who just became a Swiss citizen. Oh, damn. Chris, I want to hear your story. I'm like 40% Swiss and Swedish. Yeah. I just found out I'm like 1/8 Irish. Yeah. I just found that out. I knew I had English and Welsh in me and Swiss German and stuff. Yeah, I was going back. I was going back through the genealogy. I found it randomly on the internet. No kidding. I was looking at tombstones, and there's this one person that we never knew who their ancestry was, and sure enough, they were there. And the progenitor who came to America was from Ireland. I would never have guessed that I'm Irish. I actually have Irish in me. It's the strangest thing. So I'm kind of a mutt, right? I got everything in me. Yeah. Let's see, mostly Nordic stuff, though, to be fair. So I asked about German, yeah. Hallo, guten Morgen. Hey, Nordpol. Давайте я быстро отвечу на вас вопросы жизни и смерти и перейдем к вопросу счастья каждый день. Начнем с простого утверждения. Государство не существует. Государство не существует, если подумать, мы уже можем быть счастливым. Государство не существует. Hey, so Wilfus is asking about certain things. What is that? Government doesn't exist, если потому мы уже можем быть счастливым. Государство. Государство это что такое? Я забыл. Что такое государство? Что такое? He says, hey, just let me ask a question really quickly about this. Let me just make a quick question here. Something that's going to the question about the state of everyday living. На чем способствует утверждающее? Государство это страна, Oh, the nation это страна политические ключи. Oh, okay. So willfulness is saying that that nations don't actually exist, that they are made up by different people, and that if we just think about that in terms of that by itself, that we're all just people living on this planet, then we can already find happiness. We can already be счастливый. It means happy or prosperous or good, beneficial. Грубая страна, да. So, very good. И верите в стране государстве все будет лучше. Да. Верите в стране государстве все будет лучше. Да, if you believe that that nations are just random borders, and if astronauts say this all the time, right? If you get out far enough, you see the world as one, and you stop seeing all the borders, and you realize it's just a bunch of people down there, and animals and other things trying to live together. John says, my father also did DNA test. We went on MyHeritage. Yeah, it turned out to be 69% West Asian. Damn, cool. Abkhazi, but there are certain roots there. Yeah. Divided into groups of people who are willing to work together. I think so too. So this has been really great, and I have to put the phone down now. I'm actually, if you can't see, I've been reading my phone with all the incoming chat. I find that to be the best way to do it. And hopefully this has been fun for you. We are a little over time. We are 1 hour, 1 and 111. Look at that. 111. If you're a numerologist, that means new things are starting. What a good time to stop. So this is going to be the end of the thing today, the podcast. Don't get mad, get busy. Come on back, watch the schedule. And if you have questions, you can join our Discord, and we can try to set up a channel to try to get to all the awesome things we can talk about. Thank you so much for your participation. Bye.